I Spy and John Tiger. Hi, I'm Gary Luvici, and we're going to look at the I Spy paperbacks written by John Tiger. And who is John Tiger? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. When I was 13 years old, that was about 150,000 years ago, I was a little kid, and there was a show on called I Spy. And it had Robert Culp as Kelly Robinson and Bill Cosby as Alexander Scott. And Robert Culp wasn't that well known, but Bill Cosby was known to all us kids, 13, 14, 12-year-old, because he had all those records, Why Is There Air, and all kinds of stuff. So Bill Cosby was like, and when he was young, he was a cool guy. And Robert Culp was a really cool guy. And this was the first show where they had a black guy and a white guy together as a team. And it was a cool team because it was a spy show. And I Spy was like an American version of James Bond, with except with two agents, CIA agents, and it was great. It was better than James Bond. And I saw the James Bond movies. James Bond movies were utterly fantastic, but they came out every 2 or 3 years. The I Spy TV show was an hour show that came out at 10 o'clock. I think it was Wednesday night on NBC. And that posed a problem for me, being 13 years old. I had to beg my father, please, can I watch I Spy? It's on tonight. It's on tonight. Can I watch it? And my mother says, don't let him watch that. That show's too, it's too violent, and it's not right for him. He's too young. He should go to bed at 10 o'clock. And I go, come on, let me see I Spy. Let me see I Spy. So I saw all the shows. I wheedled my way into watching them, every show for all those years. And as the next, I think it was the next year or something, I saw a paperback book come out, and it was I Spy, and I went, damn. And this is it. This is the first I Spy book. This was a series of 7 books. It would be a series of 7 books by some guy named John Tiger, who I'd never heard of. This is from 1965. And the I Spy team, Kelly Robinson and Alexander Scott, were called the Domino team that worked for the CIA. Domino because one was black and one was white. This was those days when everything was so. But it was a historical show in the sense of having a black hero who was really cool and who was equal to the white hero. And the two of them were really cool guys. And they had a great banter together and a great friendship and camaraderie that I'm pretty sure went beyond the show. And I think that originally, I heard this, and originally when the show was forecast to, they were going to put the show together, they wanted Robert Culp. And he wanted Bill Cosby. He said, we're going to do it this way. We're going to have a black actor who's young, who's cool, and who's going to be, the equal of the white actor in this spy show. And he kind of got, or helped Bill Cosby get that role at that time, because this is 1965. This is a long time ago when this show started, when it came out. So it was really a historical show, record-breaking. Robert Culp was a great person, and Bill Cosby was known to us kids more than Robert Culp. I mean, he was known because he was from his records, albums, and his comedy and stuff. He was like a really funny guy. He was a great guy, and I don't know what happened in the as years go by, but these days, in those days, I loved them both. They were terrific, and it was great. And I read the I Spy book by John Tiger, first book in the series, and it was not about any of the, it was not a novelization of any of the shows. It was an original I Spy spy novel, and it was great. It was even better than the show. It was amazing. And I was just like, who's this John Tiger guy? Whoever he is, he's just incredible. And I noticed that as every 6 months or so, a new I Spy book would come out. And there was I Spy 2, Masterstroke, and I Spy 3, Super Kill. And they didn't have anything in the back. My copies are signed by the author, but I'll get into that later. So here's more pictures from the show. All these stories had to do with super James Bond kind of villains, and they were just incredible. I mean, there was one where the villains wanted to destroy the United States Pentagon, and they had an idea how they were going to do it, and the CIA thought, well, they're gonna bomb it or blow it up or something like that. But what they did was the villain had the concession for changing the fire extinguishers in the entire Pentagon, which is like 1,000 fire extinguishers or something like that. And he took them out and put in new ones with poison gas. So that was like the story, that how they had to figure out how this guy was going to do that. And the other stories were just as like super fantastic. I mean, Osama bin Laden and 9/11 could have been like a super villain story out of James Bond or out of I Spy, because Robinson and Scott would have easily handled that kind of situation. Kelly Robinson, Robert Culp was a tennis bum. He was like a kind of a cool guy who went after the women and was like always with the quick remark. And he was a tennis bum playing all over the world. And that was his cover as a part of Domino to travel the world to do their spying. And Alexander Scott was his trainer. And he knew like the technical angle of a lot of things. And he was also an agent. And that was their cover to travel the world as the Domino team for the CIA, to get rid of all kinds of villains and nasty guys. During the Cold War, a lot of this stuff has to do with the Cold War. It has to do with some of the villains are communists and Marxists. Some of them are old neo-Nazis and old Nazis that are trying to bring the Fourth Reich back, and all kinds of. So they're fighting all these super kind of villains at the time of the Cold War and before. And number 4 was Wipeout. That's the only one with an art cover. Number 5 was Countertrap. Number 6 was Doom Date. And number 7 was Death Twist. So there's 7 books by John Tiger, who I had no idea who he was. I read them all and I loved them. These books are so underrated, you wouldn't believe it. And when I tell you who wrote them, then you're going to understand that. Okay? So these books came out from 65 to 67, like a 3-year period when the show was on. And they were just great. But I didn't know who wrote them. And for many, many years, I didn't know who wrote them. I collected them and I kept them. Some of these are actually my actual copies that I bought at the time in 1967 or so, 66, when I was a kid, 14 years old or whatever, when I was reading these. And I read them because they blew my mind. They were just so good. They were just so good. Better than James Bond. And it would take me maybe 30, 35 years later before I found out who actually wrote them, and to become friendly with, become good friends actually with the author, with that author. In the meantime, I noticed that John Tiger wrote 2 other books in the series that was very popular at the time, which I happen to like very much, and that was Mission Impossible. He wrote book 1 and 4 of the Mission Impossible books at the same time in the 60s. So this is John Tiger writing more thriller, espionage, spy stuff in Mission Impossible, and these are great too. I don't know who wrote the other two. I don't think I have those, but these were by him. So, who is John Tiger? Well, he was a guest at my paperback show for many years, and he signed books for me, and he signed these books in, this is one of them. This is one that I read in 1974. I actually wrote a little note on there. And signed Walter Wager, also known as John Tiger. So John Tiger was Walter Wager. And I asked him, Walter, why were you John Tiger at the time? And he told me. He said he was working at the United Nations. And this was at the time of the Cold War. He was writing these books in the 60s, 70s, and 80s during the Cold War. And he didn't want his name to be known to people there because it might cause delicate situations with international politics and diplomacy and things like that. And he was involved in some of the diplomacy and things at the United Nations. So he wrote them undercover, and he became John Tiger. And then years later, he wrote as Walter Wager. Walter was born in 1924. He passed away, sadly, in 2004, 79 years old. He had 3 movies were made from his books. It's Telephone, Twilight's Last Gleaming, which was the movie retitled one of his books, and Die Hard 2 was made from, with Bruce Willis, was made from one of his books. And here's a picture of Walter at my book show. In 2002, here's moi asking him to sign something for me. Walter was a really, really nice guy. Very, very intelligent, very, very historically astute and knowledgeable on all kinds of things. And he was a gadfly a little bit because he loved talking. He loved people. He loved talking with people. He was such a pleasure to be around. Always interesting. I mean, you could sit down for hours and talk to him because about any subject at all, and he knew about a lot, so much about everything. But he was easy to talk to, and he was so friendly. He's really a wonderful guy. But it's amazing to me that like such a sweet, wonderful guy like him could write such hard-boiled, rather brutal sometimes espionage thrillers. And these were thrillers with they keep your heart racing and your blood flowing very well because he was that great of a writer. And I just like to give this video as an homage to John Tiger, to Walter Wager, to I Spy, to memories of when I was a kid. And, it would take me like 35 years before I would find out who John Tiger was and to meet him as Walter Wager and to be friends with him. And we had great times. He was a guest at my show, my book show. This is from 2002, 2 years before he passed away, actually. And he
lost your train of thought?
Yeah, we lost my train of thought. I wanted to say something else, but
why don't you show us books?
I think you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you some other books. So, but I just wanted to do a tribute to Walter. Walter is a great guy and a supremely talented writer of suspense fiction. So I'm going to put those on the side here, and I'm going to show a few books of his. These are just a few paperbacks. He did a series, 3 books, introducing A.B. Gordon. She was a female private eye. And this is 1981, Berkeley book. And this is Blue Leader. There's 3 books in the Blue series, I guess you'd call it. Blue Moon, Sexy Female Private Eye. And the last book from 1982, 3rd book, is Blue Murder. So Walter did those as Walter Wager. He didn't use the John Tiger pseudonym after about 1970 or so. So he must have retired at some point from the United Nations, or had a different position, or maybe he just didn't care about it. He had a lot of 3 of his books were made into movies. One of them was Telephone, which is made into a movie. Famous spy thriller. An interesting thing about this book is, and this is from, doesn't have a date on it, I don't have a date on it. The design, the cover design is interesting because it has a Theodore Franklin Roosevelt dime on the cover. Shows the dime in like a foil wrap kind of design, and you see the dime, and the dime is changing, and it changes, and then it changes down to a skull, like a skull. So it's kind of a cool idea that they had with that. This is a British Futura edition from 1978, Time of Reckoning. And this is from 1973. A team of ex-Green Berets pulled the kidnapped caper of the century. And again, it's another Cold War anti-Soviet Union book, Swap. He wrote many, many books, and all of these were hardcovers first, except for the I Spy and Mission Impossible. And then there's just one here that I have. It's a 1968. It's a Dutch book from Mission Impossible. So just a very small, short tribute to Walter Wager and to John Tiger and I Spy. Thing is, you should, if you're looking for really good stuff to read, good suspense, spy, Cold War thrillers, Walter Wager is somebody you should be reading. And the I Spy and Mission Impossible books that he wrote as John Tiger are terrific. They are terrific, and you should definitely get them and read them. And if you have them, you should read them. You're going to love them. So I hope you enjoyed this look, and all the best holiday greetings to you, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Give us a thumbs up, and vaya con Dios.